Listen to me. You don't need to announce your grind. You don't need to tell them your plan, your moves, your next step. Because real power is when you let your results talk so loud, they don't even hear your words. You've been talking too much, posting every little thing, telling everybody what you're gonna do. But guess what? Talk don't build legacies. Execution does. Let me tell you something. The world doesn't respect potential. They respect proof. They don't care what you say you're gonna be. They care what you become. You don't have to clap back at the haters. You don't have to argue with the doubters. Let your grind argue for you. Let your discipline respond. Let your results answer every single person who ever counted you out. You don't need to tell people what you're working on. You don't need to post every small win, every early morning, every long night. That's not where real power lives. Real power lives in the silence, in the discipline, in the grind nobody sees. Because when you move in silence, you give yourself the gift of focus. No distractions, no comparisons, no outside opinions. Just you, your vision, and your commitment. See, the problem is too many people want to be seen starting, but don't want to be watched finishing. They want attention for the hustle, not the reward from the grind. But the truth is, the loudest one in the room is usually the least secure. Confidence doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need approval. Confidence is when you're doing the work when nobody's clapping. And you still show up, still push, still execute like the whole world's watching. That's what separates the almost from the unstoppable. Working in silence means you trust the process. You believe in yourself enough not to explain it. You don't need validation. You don't need likes, comments, or applause. Because when you know where you're going, you stop wasting energy telling everyone about the trip. You just pack your bags and go. And when you get there, they'll know, they'll see it. But not because you told them, because your life will show them. Your results will speak volumes louder than your words ever could. Silence is a tool for those who are truly dangerous. The ones who are locked in, dialed in, obsessed with the outcome. The ones who aren't trying to prove anything to anybody, just to themselves. The ones who are willing to suffer in the shadows, to struggle without sympathy, to sacrifice without recognition, because they know the payoff is coming. You got to understand, when you talk too early, you invite opinions you didn't ask for. You invite energy that throws you off course. You give people the power to doubt you before you even begun. But when you stay silent, nobody can sabotage your momentum. Nobody can distract your direction. Silence is armor. It protects your process. It keeps your focus sharp. It keeps your intention pure. It keeps your grind personal. Because the moment you let it out, the moment you tell the world what you're building, you put pressure on your process that doesn't belong there. That pressure turns into performance. And now you're working for the applause instead of the purpose. And that's the fastest way to lose. The fastest way to burn out. Because when the claps stop, so will your motivation. And that's why so many people quit. They weren't really building for themselves. They were building for show. When you keep your vision quiet, it stays yours. It grows in the dark like a seed. Nobody sees it. Nobody touches it. It's protected. It's nurtured. And when it breaks through the surface, when it finally blooms, it's undeniable. It's powerful because it wasn't made to be pretty. It was made to last. And that kind of growth only happens in silence, in the daily boring, brutal work, in the moments when quitting would be easier, but you keep going anyway. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you're too busy working to speak. You're too focused to brag. Too dedicated to entertain distractions. You're not running your mouth because you're running your mission. You're not chasing validation because you're chasing results. And when you finally step out, when they finally see what you become, it won't be because you begged them to notice. It'll be because they can't ignore it. Because when you put in the work silently, consistently, relentlessly, the outcome gets so loud, so obvious, so undeniable that silence turns into a roar. A roar they never saw coming. A roar they can't stop talking about. All because you chose to keep quiet when everyone else was making noise. Grind in private, shine in public. That's the code the greats live by. While everybody else is busy showing off their effort, you stay locked in behind the scenes, building something they can't even imagine. There's power in keeping the process sacred. There's power in not needing to be seen right now, because you know the outcome will make it impossible to be ignored later. The truth is, People get addicted to being noticed, and that addiction will kill your progress. When you're chasing attention, you forget to chase growth. You start performing instead of perfecting. You start working for applause instead of working for mastery. And that's when you lose the edge. Because mastery isn't sexy. It's not flashy. It's repetition. It's discomfort. It's day after day of doing what's hard, what's boring, what's necessary. And most people don't want to do that if no one's watching. But if you want to be great, you've got to fall in love with the grind that nobody sees. That's what separates the pros from the pretenders. The pretenders want the spotlight without the sweat. They want the stage without the struggle. They want the moment without the mileage. But the pros, they put in the work when it's just them and the early morning, them and the late nights, them and the sacrifice. Nobody's copying. Nobody's reposting. Nobody's telling them a good job, but they don't need it because the grind is personal. The vision is real. The hunger is deep. Then they understand one thing. If you grind in private long enough, your shine in public is inevitable. Not maybe, not possibly. Inevitable. You become too good to be denied. But too many people quit before they ever reach that level because they got caught up in the game of being seen. They posted their first step and waited for likes. They shared their goals and waited for support. And when it didn't come fast enough, they slowed down. They second guessed. They stopped protecting. Oh, quenche. Not because they didn't have what it takes, but because they didn't understand what it takes. It takes silence. It takes solitude. It takes a season where nobody understands what you're doing, where nobody believes in you, where nobody sees the value yet. That's the season where you separate yourself. That's where the grind or builds you. And the ones who keep going, the ones who embrace that silence, they come out of it with something unstoppable. There's a certain beauty in building without noise. When nobody's watching, you can fail without shame. You can grow without pressure. You can experiment, adjust, adapt. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just trying to become the best version of yourself. That's the kind of work that lasts. That's the kind of work that doesn't fade when the trends change. You don't need to tell the world what you're doing because the world will feel it when you're done. The success will speak so loudly that silence becomes your legacy. People will ask, where did this come from? But they won't understand the hours, the pain, the grind that went unseen. That's the point. They're not supposed to see it. They're supposed to be shocked by it. You gotta protect your grind like it's sacred. Cause it is. It's not a performance. It's a promise to yourself. A promise that says, I'm not doing this to be noticed. I'm doing this to win. And when you win, not just once, but consistently, undeniably, at a level nobody can touch, that's when the shine happens. That's when people look up and realize you leveled up while they were watching someone else. That's when your name enters rooms your mouth never spoke in. Because you earned your spot through consistency, not clout. Through sweat, not stories. Through silence, not showing off. You gave your grind time to grow, and now it shows. Outwork everyone, even when no one's watching. That's the difference between average and elite. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's not about what you started with. It's about who keeps going. The room is empty. When there's no crowd, no cameras, no recognition, just you and the goal. Most people can show up when the lights are on. They can grind when people are cheering, when there's pressure, when there's praise, or when it's quiet. When it's quiet, when it's just them and the grind, they fall off. They slow down, they start cutting corners, but the ones who really want it, they push even harder when no one's watching. Because they know that the unseen hours are the ones that separate greatness from mediocrity. You don't become unstoppable by working when it's convenient. You become unstoppable by working when it's uncomfortable, when it's cold, when you're tired. When your body says a rest, but your purpose says a grind, that's where the transformation happens. That's where confidence is built. You're not gonna get confidence from compliments. You get it from the reps you do in silence, from the early mornings when you're the only one up, from the hours you spend with no audience, no applause, no reward in sight. It's in those moments that you learn how bad you really want it. Because if your grind depends on being seen, then your success is controlled by attention. And the minute attention disappears, so will your effort. Real ones don't need a stage to give full effort. They don't need a coach yelling at them to push. They don't need a deadline to get started. They hold themselves accountable. They train with a chip on their shoulder, not because someone's watching, but because they remember the doubt, the disrespect, the pain of not being where they wanted to be. And they use it. They channel it into every rep, every set, every page, every hour. Because they know the work they put in when nobody's there is what's going to make the difference when everybody is there. You can't fake preparation. You can't cheat grind. Sooner or later, the truth shows. And that's why you outwork them in the dark. Because when the lights come on, you'll be the only one ready. You'll be conditioned. You'll be sharper. You'll be tougher. You'll have scars that turn into skills, pain that turn into power. And while everyone else is trying to rise to the occasion, you're already dead because your standard never changed. Whether someone was watching or not, there's a different kind of hunger that comes when you stop needing eyes on you. You get locked in, focused. You stop performing and start perfecting. You stop looking for credit and start chasing results. You're not doing it to post about it. You're not doing it to talk about it. You're doing it to become someone they can't ignore. Someone who's undeniable. Because when you outwork people in the quiet, you gain something they'll never have. Inner fire. Inner fire. That thing inside you that doesn't let you quit. That thing that whispers and one more, everything hurts. That thing that turns obstacles into fuel and failure into fuel. Most people don't have that. They've been conditioned to only show up when they're seen, to only push when someone's clapping. But the greats, they clap for themselves. They wake themselves up. They motivate themselves. Because they've learned the truth, the work you do in private always shows up in public. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually it shows. And when it does, you're not just ready, your level's ahead. Not because you're better, but because you were willing to do what they weren't. You didn't need the spotlight. You didn't need the hype. You just needed the mission. And that mission became your obsession. You got addicted to the grind, to the growth, to the pain. Because every ounce of it made you stronger, sharper, more dangerous. And now you don't just work hard. You work smart, you work relentless, and you work like the outcome depends on you. Because it does let your results clap back. You don't need to explain yourself to anybody. You don't need to argue, defend, or convince anyone of your worth. That's what your work is for. That's what your discipline is for. That's what your results are for. Your results are for. Let them laugh. Let them whisper. Let them overlook you, underestimate you, dismiss you. Don't respond with noise. Respond with action. Respond with achievement. Because nothing shuts down a critic like undeniable success. Nothing silences a hater like watching you rise while they're still talking. Words can be debated. Opinions can be twisted. But results don't lie. Results are the ultimate comeback. They speak louder than any excuse, any insult, any judgment ever could. Too many people get caught up trying to win the argument, trying to prove a point with words, trying to fire back on social media, trying to clap back at people who don't even deserve a response. That's wasted energy. That's emotional spending. Emotional spend. You don't owe anybody a justification for why you do what you do. You owe yourself results. You owe yourself greatness. And the way you pay that debt is by grinding every single day without needing applause, without chasing attention. You grind so that one day the same people who tried to bring you down won't have to watch you level up without them. And when they do, you won't have to say a word because your life, your growth, your glow, that'll say everything. They doubted you because they couldn't see your vision. They laughed at you because they couldn't understand your hunger. They ignored you because they didn't believe you'd follow through. And maybe they were right before. But now you're building something they can't ignore. Now you got fire in your soul and purpose in your steps. Now you're not chasing revenge. You're chasing results. You're not in it for the flex. You're in it for the finish line. The finish line where nobody remembers what they said about you because what you did ain't shine all of it. The best part is you don't even need them to see you coming. Let them sleep on you. Let them pretend you're not in the room. Let them think you're not a threat. That's your advantage. Because while they talk, you work. While they doubt, you build. While they distract themselves with opinion, you discipline yourself with purpose. And purpose beats noise every single time. Purpose keeps you moving when motivation fades. Purpose keeps you silent when others scream for attention. And purpose makes your success the kind of statement that nobody can ignore. People will question your timing, your decisions, your methods. Let them People will talk like they know your struggle, like they've lived your pain, like they understand your why. Let them talk. They don't know what it's like to carry a vision that only you can see. They don't know what it feels like to fight for something that hasn't even shown up yet. But you do. You live it, and you don't need to say a thing. You just keep pushing, keep improving, keep growing, because your life becomes your proof. Your consistency becomes your evidence. Your results become your response. You're not just grinding to prove them wrong. You're grinding to prove yourself right. To prove that the dream wasn't random, that the hunger wasn't fake, that the passion wasn't temporary. And when the results come in, when the wins stack up, when the progress is impossible to deny, they'll remember every word they said about you, and they'll choke on it. Not because you said anything back, but because you let the scoreboard talk, you let the success speak. You let your transformation become your reply. Not out of spite, but out of discipline, not for attention, but for purpose. Not to be seen, but to be fulfilled. Because you knew deep down the loudest clapback in the world isn't noise, it's excellence. And you were willing to suffer in silence just to earn that kind of voice. Discipline is louder than hype. Hype is loud, fast, temporary. It gets the crowd excited. It makes people feel like something big is coming, but it fades just as quickly as it rises. Discipline, though, is quiet. It doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't ask for attention. It just shows up day after day, whether it feels good or not, whether anyone's watching or not. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. Discipline doesn't care about your emotions. It doesn't care if you're tired, if you're bored, if you don't feel inspired. Discipline only knows the mission. It shows up with the same intensity on Monday as it does on Sunday. It doesn't take days off. It doesn't wait for the perfect move. It's not about motivation. It's about commitment. Hype might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going. You can get hype from a video, from a speech, from a song, but that feeling will fade the moment things get uncomfortable. That's when discipline steps in. That's when you choose to act based on your goals, not your feelings. That's when you prove to yourself that this isn't just talk, it's real. Because anyone can be motivated in the moment. Anyone can get hyped after watching a highlight reel. But not everyone can wake up at 4 a.m. when the bed is warm and the world is dark. Not everyone can train when no one is clapping, write when no one is reading, work when no one is cheering. That's discipline. That's real strength. The problem with hype is it's external. You're relying on energy from the outside. You're feeding off attention, off feedback, off recognition. But what happens when the lights go out? What happens when the crowd moves on? That's where most people quit, because they never had discipline. They only had momentum from outside validation. But the greats, the ones who win year after year, the ones who outlast trends and beat odds, they built their life on discipline. Their fire comes from within. They don't need a crowd. They don't need permission. They don't need applause. They have a code and they stick to it. They show up because they said they would. They deliver because that's who they are. You can't build anything lasting on hype. A solid foundation is built through repetition, through boring, consistent, focused effort. That's what discipline is. It's not always exciting, but it's effective. It's not flashy, but it's foundational. It's not popular, but it's powerful. Discipline is the gym session you do when no one's watching. The healthy meal you choose when no one's checking. The work you put in when nobody's praising you. It's in those moments that character is forged, that identity is shaped, that greatness is born. Discipline doesn't wait for January 1st. It doesn't care about Mondays. It doesn't need a countdown or a new season to get started. It starts now, right where you are, with whatever you got. Discipline doesn't ask for perfect conditions. It creates them. It builds consistency in chaos. It finds order in the storm. While hype is distracted by what's trending, discipline is focused on what's necessary. It doesn't jump from one thing to the next. It digs deep. It masters the fundamentals. It stays locked in on the boring, difficult, unglamorous details to actually create results. When you're disciplined, your life becomes a reflection of your standard, not your moods, not your environment, not other people's expectations, your own inner code. That code becomes your compass. And the more you honor it, the stronger it becomes. The stronger it becomes, the less you need hype, because you're no longer chasing energy. You are the energy. You generate it with your actions, with your attitude, with your consistency. And that kind of energy, that kind of quiet power is rare. It's respected. It's the kind that makes noise without ever raising its voice. It doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from intention. From waking up every day and deciding, I don't need to feel ready. I just need to be responsible. That's discipline. That's where winners are made, not in the moment of hype, but in the hours of silence, repetition, and relentless self-control. Shock the world. But stop by shocking yourself. Before you can prove anyone wrong, before you can silence the doubters or impress the crowd, you've got to go places within yourself that you didn't even know existed. You've got to dig into a level of hunger that surprises you. You've got to reach a level of effort, of intensity, of consistency that makes even the old version of you look average. This isn't about proving something to the world first. It's about blowing your own expectations out of the water. It's about showing up in ways you didn't believe you could. Pushing past limits you thought were unbreakable. That's where it all begins. If you want to shock the world, you've got to become someone you didn't even think you had the power to become. The real competition is the person you were yesterday, last week, last year. And if you're not constantly shocking that version of you, the world will never feel your impact. People spend so much time trying to gain respect from people who don't even matter. But the real power comes when you start earning respect from yourself. When you wake up and realize you're not doing it for likes or praise or attention. You're doing it because deep down, you know you were made for more. You know there's a version of you with more discipline, more courage, more fire, more consistency, and you want to meet that version. You want to see how far you can really go. You want to look in the mirror one day and not even recognize yourself in the best way. Not because you changed to fit in, but because you grew into someone so strong, so focused, so driven that even your past self couldn't keep up. That's what this journey is about. It's not about being noticed. It's about becoming undeniable. And to get there, you have to surprise yourself with how hard you're willing to work, with how long you're willing to stay committed, with how many times you're willing to get back up after failure. Because it's not going to be smooth. You're going to hit walls. You're going to want to quit. But that's where the real growth lives. Right in the middle of the struggle. Right in the part that breaks most people. That's the part you have to lean into. That's the part where the next version of you is waiting. Shock yourself by doing more than what's expected. By staying later, waking up earlier, pushing further. By keeping promises to yourself, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's how self-respect is built. That's how confidence is created. You stop hoping for motivation and start moving from responsibility. You stop chasing hype and start operating from purpose. And once you see what you're capable of, once you start stacking those small wins, those unseen victories, it builds something inside you that no one can take away. It builds belief, not the kind you post about, the kind that burns quietly, deeply, powerfully, and then the shift happens. You start to operate differently. You stop shrinking around small-minded people. You stop lowering your standards to fit in. You stop apologizing for going all in because you've already done the hard part. You've already shocked yourself. You already faced the excuses, the fear, the insecurity, and kept moving. And now the world's about to find out what you've been building in silence. They're going to see the results of the work you've done in the dark. And it's going to hit different. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because you became something. Because you turned your struggle into strength. Your doubt into drive. Your pain into power. When people see the new you, they won't understand how you got there. They won't see the early mornings, the lonely nights, the sacrifices you made. They'll only see the glow, the excellence, the confidence, but you'll know that wasn't a switch. It was a process of challenging yourself. Stretching yourself, shocking yourself every single day until greatness became normal, until excellence became the standard, until winning became the habit. You won't have to say a word because everything about you will speak for itself. The way you walk, the way you work, the way you show up consistently, relentlessly, intentionally. That's how you shock the world. Not by aiming to impress them, but by transforming yourself so completely, so deeply that they can't ignore what you become. So now you know this journey ain't about noise. It's not about talking louder, showing off more, or proving anything to anyone. It's about the work, the quiet, consistent, relentless work. It's about waking up every day with a mindset that says, I don't owe them words. I owe them results. You don't need to be seen to be dangerous. You don't need to be heard to be powerful. Because when it's time, when you built it in silence, grown in the dark, sacrificed for it without applause, your success is going to walk in the room and speak so loud, they'll feel it before you even say a word. Stay focused, stay hungry, stay disciplined, and remember this, the real flex isn't making noise, it's making history.